Hello, my name is Robert Cargill, and I decided to do my leadership essay and my little TED Talk here over Carrie Chapman Catt. She was a huge force in her time and was largely responsible for the final push on the women's equal rights movement and the eventual ratification in the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. I think what I'm going to do today is go over some of the more important things to me that we've learned in class about leadership in the articles we've read and the videos we've watched, and try and use those as guidelines to why I think she was an excellent leader. First off, you have to be motivated. You have to be determined. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes to get to your end goal. Carrie was very motivated. She started in politics at a very early age. In 1886, she was already the head of the Iowa Women's Suffrage Association, and then in 1900, she eventually succeeded Susan B. Anthony as the president of the National American Women's Suffrage Association. So she definitely had that drive. Many people who were around her and knew her talked about how hardworking she was, how determined she was. And I think that's often a talked about thing that is needed in leadership, but it's often overlooked. I think sometimes people who are in leadership positions don't understand or realize the challenges and difficulties that may arise from doing what they need to do, and they don't take it not necessarily seriously, but they don't go at it with the same gumption that others do. Another thing that really stuck out to me this whole class is the ability to take difficulties in stride. There are no easy things in life. Most times, in many circumstances, there are going to arise some challenges. And it's about how you accept those challenges and how you go about dealing with those challenges that really determines how effective of a leader you can be. She dealt with many things throughout her entire career that were very challenging. Lots of people were fighting against her. Lots of people were so ingrained with how things were that they were really fighting against such a radical change. Not just things like that, but there's problems that arose even within their own association with how to go about dealing with their next step to getting the amendment passed. There was an altercation with a woman named Alice Paul, and it was about how they should go about now their next step to try and bring more national attention to that. And Alice Paul's opinion was that they should go at this from a federal level first, and that they should only go at it that way, and they won't take no for an answer. They'll just keep going after it and keep going after it until they eventually cave in. Carrie Chapman Catt's idea was to go at things from a state-by-state basis. If they get certain states to agree with them, then other states will fall, and other states will fall, and etc. And then eventually they'll have the whole country on their hands. Not many people agreed with her, and so they had to go off and form their own association with a few members to try and do things that way. I think that's a important characteristic, is that you have to be willing also to do things differently, get out of your comfort zones. Some of the videos we watched talked about that you may get comfortable in doing something a certain way, and it may work for a certain period of time, but it's not always going to work out that way. It's not always going to be that same agenda. You have to be willing to forget everything you learned and try and do something a new way to try and succeed, because it's not always going to be how you want it to be. Another thing that I think is extremely important in being a leader is to be able to speak, and not just to be able to speak, but to be able to be heard. You have to be able to get your point across, what you have in your head, to the people you are trying to work with, and they have to be able to understand where you're coming from. They have to be able to know exactly the situations and scenarios that you do, and be able to recognize things as you do. I think that doesn't really make any sense. I think what I'm trying to say is that you have to be able to have people understand where you're coming from. They have to be able to know how to go about doing something in the way you want to do it, and how the way you think will be successful. You have to be able to have the people on your side. If they don't agree with what you're saying, or they don't even understand what you're saying because you're not being very clearly communicative with them, then that makes things a lot more stressful, and a lot more harder. When you have people who are able to understand you and understand what you're saying and not just hear you, it makes things go a lot easier. It allows for everyone to be on the same page, to be able to do what they need to do. There was a reporter that quoted her at a speech she did as being a very factual person, and when she spoke, it was very as to not give offense, as to not offend. So she was a very good speaker, and I think that when you're trying to accomplish something, especially as big as she is, but even in small situations, you need to be able to speak. It's a very important part of being a leader, and it's an often, I think, overlooked part of being a leader. If you can't communicate clearly, then the whole process can be a lot more difficult. I think another important thing is that you have to be respected. You have to be not only respected by the people you are working with, but the people who you may be working against. If you're not respected, then people will find it a lot harder to do the things that you want them to do, because they don't necessarily agree with you as a person. She was a very well-respected person, and in fact, she had Woodrow Wilson was so enticed with her speaking and how passionate she was that he had a deep respect for her, and he eventually got on the bandwagon and got support with her, and was a huge factor in getting the 19th Amendment eventually ratified. So I think that she was a very tremendous person and was a tremendous leader. She was very motivated, very determined. She wouldn't let anything stand in her way, and she knew what she wanted to do. She had an action plan, and she put that into place. She was also not afraid to try out new things. She was not afraid to think outside the box. She was willing to try new things in order to get to her end goal, because it was important to her, not just her comfort zone and what she was comfortable with, but the end goal was more important to her than any of that. She was a very well-versed person. She was very well-spoken. She was able to speak, and people were able to hear her and not understand. They were able to understand her and not just listen to the words, but listen to the meaning behind them. And she was also very well respected. She had the respect of many, many people, including people in very important positions in the government, and that eventually helped with her final push for the 19th Amendment to be passed and ratified. So I think that the reason I was so enticed with her, and the reason I liked her so much, is because I found myself trying to fight for something as strongly as that was in the time, and having so many people against you, having so many people trying to prevent you from getting to your end goal, and yet she was so deeply passionate about getting it done that she wouldn't let anything get in her way. She wanted to get this done, and that was that. It was going to get done under her watch. And I've read and listened to a couple of her speeches. Well, not listened to her speeches, but listened to her speeches being read. And she was a very fluid speaker. She was able to draw you in. She was very able to get you interested in wanting you, and you were wanting to understand what she was saying. You wanted to participate, and that is very important to me. in order to become a leader. Those things I mentioned: you need to be motivated, you need to be determined, you need to be well-spoken, you need to be able to deal with challenges and get out of your comfort zone and try something new, and you need to be respected. And I think those are the main reasons that I personally thought she was a great leader, and hopefully you all thought so as well. Thank you.